It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander. We are back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the Commander in front of us on my quest to outbrew your favorite Magic channel. We talked in yesterday's video that I was trying up some new formats for this week for videos to get your guys' opinions. We're trying up it a little bit different, but today we are covering Pantlaza Sun Favored, our Veloci-Ramp-tor Precon upgrade. Pantlaza is a 2 red, green, white 4/4 legendary creature dinosaur that says whenever Pantlaza or another dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may discover X, where X is that creature's toughness. Do this only once each turn. To discover is to exile cards from the top of your library and take a non-land card with that mana value or less, cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Discovering should look pretty similar to, or familiar to some people, because it's just like Cascade, except there's two differences. One, it's that mana value or less, and two, we can put it into our hand as an option instead of putting it on bottom. So, what is Pantlaza trying to do? We're trying to use all of our dinosaurs that are coming in to help us cheat out cards from our deck, whether they be other dinosaurs, whether it be the permanents, artifacts, and enchantments that are going to help our game plan along, whether it's even casting spells, ramp spells, and other things for free. We're going to try to play the biggest dino we can each turn, use it to discover down into something useful, and have a good time. Now, I think there's two big routes we can take with Pantlaza. There's the blink route, where we're going to try to blink Pantlaza once or other creatures as many times as we can to profit off of that. And then there's the just ramp into the biggest things we can to have the best chance of discovering, and or try to play our dinos on other people's turns, which we're going to play into a little bit as well, because it's once each turn, not once per each of our turns. So if we can do something on everyone's turn, we'll actually take advantage of that. What I decided to do, because it's what the Precon's trying to do, was the first round, ramping. And almost every sorcery in our deck cares about ramp. We have Farseek and Nature's Lore. Both of those are 2-mana spells that can go get lands in our deck that have of a certain type. We're not playing Shocks in this deck. We are playing Jetmir's Garden, though. We are playing our Triumphs. We can go get that. We are also playing things like Canopy Vista and Cinderglade, so both of these lands are going to be able to go get that. Whereas Rampant Growth, Thunderherd Migration, and Cultivate and Kadama's Reach are all going to go get basic lands. And so what we're trying to do is start off ramping so we can ramp into Pantlaza, and then as we get above Pantlaza, try to just continue to play the biggest dinos we can to take advantage of our ramp. Now, we also have a couple dinos that can help us with ramping. Things like Hulking Raptor says at the beginning of our pre-combat main phase, and that's double green, and this is a 4-mana dinosaur, so hopefully we can get this down pretty cheap. As well as something like Topiary Stomper, allowing us to come in and get a basic land when it comes in, and it can't attack or block unless we have 7 lands, and something like Wayward Swordtooth, which can allow us to play an additional land on each of our turns. And these are fairly, small down the mana scale, as well as something like Marauding Raptor, which is going to let us cast creature spells for 1 mana less, 1 colorless mana less. So as you can see, these things together are going to allow us to start ramping up our curve so we can get high up into our dinos. But we also want good dinosaurs to discover from, and I think the one thing that we have access to, especially a couple of things from the new set, are dinosaurs that their toughness, which is remember what we're going to discover from, is higher than what we paid for the spell. I think the biggest example is something like Pugnacious Hammerskull from the new set, a 6/6 for 3. That's when it's going to come in, is going to discover for 6. Same thing with that Wayward Swordtooth we talked about. A 5/5 for just 3 mana. It's going to come in for 3 mana and discover for 5. We have something like Gultan Maverin, a 12/12 for 7 mana that's going to come in and discover for 12. Our new Gulta, a 12/12 for 8 mana, again, is going to come in and discover for 12. And then Gulta Primal Hunger, our biggest, most expensive dino on this list, a 12 mana 12/12, but costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures we control, meaning that Gulta is almost always going to come down for 2 or 3 mana and is going to discover for 12. So we're going to take advantage of these dinosaurs coming down and hopefully discovering us for more value than we're worth. Well, we also have something like the new Trumpeting Carnosaur, which comes in and discovers 5, and if it's the dino for the turn we choose to discover, it's going to discover 5 and discover 6. That is 11 mana worth of discovering that we get to do for just 6 mana for that Carnosaur coming down. Okay, well, we're setting up this discover plan, but the problem is we're going to be putting all these dinosaurs in, and they're not going to be able to do something the turn they come down, right? We're going to want to win this game by combat, but we're not going to be able to get there if we're just putting these, dinos down and waiting. The first card that's going to help with this is Vivien, Champion of the Wilds, which says we can cast creature spells as though they had flash. This is going to work 2 ways in the deck. One, it's going to let us play our creatures on our opponent's turn, which is going to help eliminate the need for haste, because they're going to be untapped and ready to attack by the time to get back to our turn. But this actually does technically let us get around Pantlaza's effect, because we could try to discover on multiple people's turns. If we are playing a couple dinosaurs and we can do it, we could try to play them on a couple of different people's turns and allow them to, discover as they come in. Pantlaza says once per turn, not once per each of our turns. We have 2 dinos in the deck, one that's in the Precon and one from the new set that both give all of our creatures haste. Polani's Hatcher is one of the new ones. It gives all of our other dinosaurs haste, so when it comes in, we get a couple tokens. And then Registrar Alpha, which is in the deck as well, gives our dinosaurs haste. So here's 2 5-mana bodies that give all of our dinosaurs haste. And we're also playing Rhythm of the Wild, which got its reprint here in the Precon, giving all of our non-token creatures that come in our choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. The thing I like about Rhythm of the Wild, of course, is that if we get Vivien out and we're casting those creatures on our opponent's turns, we don't necessarily need them to have haste, and they can come in with that +1/+1 counter. Or if it's a dinosaur we don't want to attack anyway, we just put it in with a +1/+1 counter. Getting into the key cards, the things that we really want to look for as we go through the process of the game, both Garruk's Uprising and the Great Henge are going to be cards that are going to allow us to draw more cards and refill our hand. Garruk's Uprising says whenever a creature with power 4 or greater comes in, we draw a card. The Great Henge only restriction is that creature has to be a non-token creature, and it gets a +1/+1 counter and it draws a card. The Grey Henge, just like Ghalta, is going to come down for cheaper, but instead of it being the total power, it's the greatest power among creatures to control. And Garruk's Uprising actually goes ahead and gives all of our creatures trample. Most of our dinosaurs have trample, but we still want to add it on there to help us hit even harder when we're going after our opponents. Poetic Ingenuity, we're adding from the main set, says whenever we attack with one or more dinosaurs, we create that many treasure tokens. And then whenever we cast an artifact, we get a 3/1 dino. This is helpful because we can take an attack, bank that mana as the treasures, and then try to use that on other people's turns for interaction, or to help protect our dinosaurs, or to do a myriad of other things. The Skullspore Nexus, a new card from the set, is going to help us out a lot because it says whenever one of our non-token creatures you control die, we create a green fungus dinosaur creature token with power and toughness equal to the total power of the creatures that died. What this will do is help us make sure we're keeping ourselves around with a big dinosaur, and then for 2 and tap it, we can actually double the power of a target creature until end of turn, which will allow us to hit even harder with maybe one of the dinos we're looking at. One of our new creatures from the set that is going to work really well in our Precon is Ghalta Stampede Tyrant. We talked about it being an 8-mana 12/12, which talks about really helping out on our Discover. But it says when it enters the battlefield, we can put any number of target creature cards from our hand out of the battlefield. This plus one of our haste enablers is going to allow us to take a big, massive attack at our opponents and start chunking away at their health, hopefully. The last is a combo that will be able to exist not only with a couple cards that are already in our Precon, but with a couple other cards, and that's a new card from the Jurassic Park set called Savage Order. This is effectively a similar reprint to a card called Natural Order, but it says an additional cost to cast a spell. We sacrifice creature power 4 or greater, and when we do, we get to search our library for a dino and put it onto the battlefield, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. Well, the indestructibles are great, because we'll obviously want to attack that turn, but there's one card that this works really well with, and that's Apex Altasaur, a 9-mana 10/10 that says when it enters the battlefield, it fights up to one target creature we don't control, and has an enraged trigger, so whenever it's dealt damage, it fights up to another creature we don't control. If we Savage Order into Apex Altasaur, we're going to be able to fight every of our opponent's creatures that we can, and just single-handedly wipe the entire board, probably, of damage. Again, Apex Altasaur doesn't care it will take the damage and it won't die because of the indestructible, and we'll be able to clear everything out. Now, if we pair this with something like Wrathful Raptors, which says whenever a dinosaur we control is dealt damage, deals that much damage to a target that isn't a dinosaur, not only could we wipe the board, but we could spread a ton of damage around to all of our opponents. Another cool combo with Wrathful Raptors is Blasphemous Act, a spell that deals 13 damage to each creature. All we would need in a standard game of Commander is 9 creatures on board, and if that's the case, dealing 13 to each of them, that will allow us to deal 39 damage to each of our opponents, which should, in most Commander games, knock out the table. So that's another fun combination by just adding 1 card to the deck, which is already a board wipe, which helps us in the process of the game. That could potentially allow us to win a game. We also added Gishath to the deck, which is a great commander in its own right, but it's going to allow us to have a secondary commander to help us get those dinos down for value. Well, the thing I don't think I talk about a lot on the channel, but I want to talk about a little bit more, is cards that didn't make the cut that I think are going to be really worth it. And the first is Aggravated Assault. Aggravated Assault is a card that allows us to take multiple combats in the same turn by paying mana. Of course, this would combo with Poetic Ingenuity, the card that we'd just have to attack with 5 dinosaurs. We get 5 treasures and we'll be able to pay for the Aggravated Assault. But of course, Aggravated Assault would work well with our haste enablers and Gishath and all of our other dinos by just dealing damage towards our opponents as they attack. And then 2 more dinosaurs that I didn't put in because at current time they're not very cheap. The first is Hunting Veloci-Raptor, a 3-mana 3/2 dino with first strike. It says dinosaur spells we control have Prowl 2 and a red, meaning if we've dealt damage to an opponent with a dinosaur, we can play our dinos for 2 and a red. I really like this card, but the time we're recording, it's sitting at about $50. I think it's a little bit too much for 1 creature. I hope this comes down, and when it comes down, I think it would be a happy inclusion of the deck, but at the moment, I just don't like it for the price point. And then Ravenous Tyrannosaurus sitting at $30 at the moment, a 6-mana 6/6 with the Devour. So when it comes in, we can sacrifice a number of creatures. If we do, it enters the battlefield with 3 times that many +1/+1 counters on it. And it says whenever it attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 other target creature. Excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. So for 1 creature, we have a 9/9 that whenever it attacks is going to deal 9 to a creature, get a blocker out of the way, and do the excess damage to its controller. I like all 3 of these cards specifically, and they were on the very short list for getting into the deck. I just couldn't find the spot. And as always, I do have my considering board here whenever I brew the deck, so you can see the cards that I was considering but didn't make it in. Well, the thing that I think I got away from that I want to get back to is playing 1 or 2 Goldfish hands so you guys can see what we're looking for in the deck. The last note I want to make is we are playing a companion on our list. Every single creature in our deck is a dinosaur, so we're allowed to play Kahira the Orphan Guard. It is a Vigilance cat beast, and it says each other creature you control that's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast. We care about the dinosaur, of course. It's +1/+1 in vigilance. So for 3 mana at any time, we can put this card from our companion zone into our hand, and then for 1 and 2 Selesnya hybrid mana, we can play this card from our hand and give all of our dinosaurs vigilance, which is not only going to help attacking, but it's going to help in blocking. Okay, well, we talked about the deck. Let's get into our playtest. We see our opening hand here with just 1 land and the Farseek. I think we're going to have to mulligan this guy away. Getting into hand 2, we see a fortified village and a mountain. We are close to having the Descendant's Path on turn 3, but we see, just another odd hand of just 2 lands. I think for the purpose of this, we will try it, and if after turn 1 I don't see a land, then we'll move on. Turn we draw the Skullspore Nexus. We'll put the Fortified Village in tapped. Turn 2, we see a Rift Scroll. This is a very interesting land because it comes in, and it's sacrificed unless we bounce a non-land we control back to our hand, which would put us in an odd space on turn 2. So we're going to mulligan this one. I'm hoping we can find a little bit better. We see a 2-mana hand with Arcane Signet, so I like this one a little bit better. Let's rock with this one. Turn 1 will play that for us. Now in turn 2, we'll have 2 choices, the Arcane Signet or Dinosaur Egg, which is a new card. We'll go to turn 2. Dinosaur Egg says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, if that creature has a greater power than this, we put a counter on it. And then whenever it dies, we discover X, where X is its toughness. I think the best thing here, since we didn't draw land, is get that Wolf Run down and get the Arcane Signet down, getting us up to 3 mana. And here we go, perfect. This turn we go ahead and cultivate. We are missing red and white, so I think that makes the most sense, getting that mountain in tapped, putting the plains into our hand, And we actually didn't play a land this turn, so we get to play that Plains and set up for the next turn. And now on turn, what is this? Turn 4, we can actually go ahead and just straight cast Pantlaza at this point, hit the Discover, and hopefully get into something. Then the next turn, if we don't the next turn, depending on what we find, we could go Topiary Stomper in the Egg. We could, if we find a land or find something that excels us forward, we can get the Trumpeting Carnosaur down to Discover twice. And now we hit our mid-range. We're working from the Carnosaur up to Gishath or Rathoraptors. Again, we have a great hand of dinos that we can play from that point. Conversely, the next turn, we could also try to pay this to get us into our hand. And Topiary Stomper, again, having Gahira there is great because once we start moving towards the mid game where we're attacking, Gahira can come into our hand and give our creatures vigilance. Well, let's give it one more shot. This is a hand we like seeing better. 5 lands, which you would think would be bad in a deck like this, but it's not because of that Discover. It means even if we don't hit a bunch of dinosaurs, hopefully we can get something relevant. Well, turn 1, we're drawing a Tali, which is great. It gives us something to work to. We're going to put that Jetmir's Garden down tapped and get it working. This Fortified Village has both the Canopy Vista and this Plains to show in hand, so we've still got plenty of time for that to come in untapped. Turn 2, I think we'll put that. Let's think about this. I think I'd put the Canopy Vista in tapped. Again, it's going to be a while before it comes in untapped, and it just allows us to have access to the mana sooner. Turn 3, we're still not seeing anything yet as far as ramp goes, but that's okay. I think I would put this Fortified Village down and we see the Plains in our hand and just get the Garruk's Uprising. What this does is it's going to actually draw us a card once Pantlaza comes down or another creature comes in that's power 4 or greater. We miss the trigger when we bring it down on drawing a card, but again, I think it's going to help us refill our hand later. Turn 4, we see a Plains, and we missed our ramp spell, but that's okay. Turn 4, we would just hold things up and be ready to go, and we get that Hulking Raptor 1 turn late, but we would then here at this point go ahead and cast Pantlaza, see what we discover off into. We would discover into a Blast of Sax. We would just put that into our hand. And now turn 5, the Sundown Pass comes in. We're at 6. We could... the Pantlaza would have also drawn us a card, which would have been the Sundown Pass. So at this point, we can just go ahead and dump this Trumpeting Carnosaur, get the Discover, get the double Discover, 1 for 6, 1 for 5 because of its ability. And now we're working towards that mid-range of value. Let me know what you guys think of this format for a new video and the deck down in the comments. The deck list will be in the description as always, and I will catch you guys next time.